My name is Nate Boley, and 20 years ago, strength training changed the course of my life. I built a gym here in Bend, Oregon from scratch that's helped over 1,500 people change their lives as well through strength training. If you want to change your life, head over to benstrengthwarehouse.com, hit the Start My Journey button, and let's chat. All right, guys, we'll see you there. Hey guys, welcome back to the Go Heavy or Go Home podcast. I am your host, Nate Boley, and today I've got an amazing episode for you that I've teed up, and this is kind of a special episode. It's not talking about necessarily the gym or necessarily strength training modalities or anything like that. It's really about my journey coming up as a kid and how I got to kind of where I'm at now. So, what I'm going to give you right now is just basically I'm going to paint you guys the scene of my early life and some challenges that I had in my environment growing up and how those really drove me to this one key factor in my life, which was strength training, and how it has completely reversed my life and going from potentially going to jail or death to being a successful gym owner, having state records, and owning a strength and conditioning gym that has helped out thousands of people throughout its time, and our mission is not even close to being over in that respect. So anyway, coming forth, so I was, in my early life, a very angry child. I had some limitations. I had some anxiety that caused me to be really frustrated because I couldn't put out what I wanted in the world, and I couldn't articulate certain things because of anxiety, which I was wrongfully diagnosed for many years as a speech impediment. Turns out I just had some anxiety. And once we got that actually diagnosed, my life unfolded in different ways as well. But I started out, having a good family, and we went hiking and hunting and wood chopping together. And my life as a younger kid, into my, even into 10, 11 years old, was fairly normal as far as I knew. When I was really young in getting into 6th, 7th grade, I got into a group of people and following kind of my parents' path as well. They smoked weed, and they smoked cigarettes, and they drank, and occasionally they did some recreational drugs. Well, I started following down that path too. I started smoking at a very young age, just after 11, started drinking, smoking weed, getting expelled from school at 6th grade for having weed on me. Kind of just life spiraled in that respect as well. I had stopped doing any kind of sports that I was doing, and I just really got into this crowd of like, hey, let's get high and let's smoke cigarettes and let's drink alcohol and let's just kind of be these porch bums, if you will, and let's play hacky sack in the park, and let's just kind of skateboard around and just be thugs, sisters thugs. Well, little did I know there was a storm brewing up in our family, and my mom and dad ended up getting pretty deep into methamphetamines. And by the time I was about 16, 17, my parents were in the thick of that, and there was a lot of crazy things that were going on. My dad was incarcerated at the time, and my mom was I think everything just fell apart super quick, and so my mom was very inactive in my life and my sister's life, and we really just had the reins to kind of do whatever we wanted to do. I had dropped out of high school at this point because I was just wanting to mess around and do nothing all day and smoke weed and get high. And then when I was 18, my real father, my biological father, I should say, had passed away from drug abuse. So I had no male figures in my life. I didn't have anybody. My uncle was an alcoholic as well. I didn't have anybody that was showing me the way, how to be a good man, how to be, how to do anything, really. I just didn't have any idea what was going on. All I wanted to do was just kind of bury those emotions and get out of the day-to-day. And, by the time I was 17, 18, I was working full time, making sure I could pay for my car, and I was able to pay for the room and board that I was staying in. I was able to pay for my cigarette and drug habits that I had. But man, it was really difficult to like just know that like, hey, I don't have anybody in my family. My mom had moved to Portland at this time. I had stayed here in Central Oregon. I had some help. I had my aunt there. I had some good friends that their parents let me like stay at their house, but nobody was really like looking out for my best interest and my growth and anything like that. It was just hey, Nate's a free spirit, and he's in between the cracks, and that's really what happened. Like, nobody ever came to my house and been like, hey, how come you're not going to school? Except for my friend Travis. He actually picked me up one day and he's like, hey, how about I want you to come back to school with me. He's like, I don't want you to just be this bum that doesn't go to school. I was like, okay, that's fair. He's like, how about I come and pick you up every day and we'll smoke weed and a cigarette before we go to school? Okay, that sounds great. So we did that for a little while, and I got out of school, and all my friends were a little bit older than me. They all graduated and stuff, and I was still left there. I had 1 year left, and I was like, man, this sucks. So I quit school again, and I just worked full time. And actually, it took me a little while to finish. It took me a long while. I drug my feet for a long time. And I finally ended up graduating with my Oregon State diploma instead of a sister's high school diploma, because they had like a 3 credit, I want to say 2 or 3 credits extra that you had to do. And there was no way I was going to be doing that. But at this time, I had been, I'm like 19 at this time, been smoking cigarettes for like 6 years. It turned into like, hey, a pack a day. Drinking a lot, smoking a lot of weed. I was basically smoking weed from the second I got up to the second I went to bed, all day long. And yeah, it was just like I was 125 pounds. I was super weak. I had no direction in my life. I had no idea what I was going to do. I had nobody to look up to, except for some, friends and stuff like that. But I just had this very lack of just guidance in anything. And I was on a path for destruction. I was on a path for ending up in jail, or just doing something stupid and killing myself or hurting somebody else or whatever, just not really knowing what the consequences of that were for actually decades after I really got out of that. It was just a really bad place to be. But I remember the actual day that led up to this decision to change my life around, and the key factor that helped me change my life in this. And it actually was, I was sitting at work on a day like today. It was a later fall day, little bit of wind coming on. There were some leaves on the ground, and I was on a break. I was working for a restaurant, and I was on a break, sitting on a picnic bench. The sun was beating down on me, and I had just smoked a couple hits of weed on my break, because I just literally smoked weed all day long. That's what I did. And I lit up a cigarette. Camel Filters actually was my cigarette of choice back then, because I had enough money to pay for them. But before that, I smoked really whatever I could get my hands on that was cheap enough. But Camel Filters were it. And I was reflecting on the day prior where a big shipment of potatoes had come to the deli I was working at, the restaurant I was working at. And I think there was 10-ish bags. I don't remember exactly how many bags. There were 50-pound bags of potatoes where we stored upstairs for fresh cut fries. And my duty for the day part of my duty for the day was making sure those bags got upstairs and into their place. Well, smoking cigarettes for a lot of years, not really caring about my health, being very small-ish in stature, I struggled really hard to get those bags up the stairs. And I remember like cussing at the bags of potatoes and, you stupid bags of potatoes, and I hate you, and why you gotta be so heavy. And I was really just frustrated at myself for being in the position that I was in. I'm like, I'm 19 years old. I'm weak. I'm smoking cigarettes every day. I'm not living a life that I'm happy with. I'm frustrated. I'm mad because, my biological father had just passed away. My stepdad he's been in prison for several years. I'm estranged to my mom, really. I don't talk to her very often. I go up there to see my little brothers, maybe every quarter. I'm just not living the life that I was like, man, this is an amazing life. This is not good. I was, pretty frustrated in the position, work that I was in. It was very busy. It was very taxing. I didn't see a career path going forward in it. I'm like, I'm stuck here grilling burgers for the rest of my life. Like, this is going to be great. I saw other people in that deli and other restaurants that just live their life like that. And not that it, if that's what you want to do, like, I'm not going to say you can't, and it's not a bad life, but man, I wanted so much more for my life than this. I had pictured more, and I wasn't seeing that career path. I wasn't seeing anything else in my life. I was just living the same day over and over again, getting up, getting high, going to work, getting off work, getting high, smoking cigarettes all day long, playing video games, and then passing out. Like, I was not happy with that life anymore. And as I'm finishing up my cigarettes, getting ready to go back into break, or from break, going back into work, I flipped open my pack of cigarettes and I noticed, hey, there's one left. Okay, I'm going to have to get some more, but I'm very conflicted in my mindset at this time. I'm thinking to myself, how do I change my life and do something better with my life and get to those dreams and those goals that I want? Or do I just go and buy another pack of cigarettes because that's what I know and that's my routine and that's easy for me just to do that and stay in the exact same position that I'm at today? And so I go inside and I'm working, and one of my friends that worked there, he was kind of like just a work buddy at the time. Turned out to be much more of a good friend in years coming. But he's very fit, very active. He's like, I'm getting ready to hike the South Sister, which I aspired to do, which 20 years later I actually finally did, which I did a couple weekends ago. He's like, I'm getting ready to hike the South Sister. I was like, oh man, I love hiking. I used to hike when I was younger. But he's like, well, you should come with me. And I was like, oh man, I'm not in shape for that. It'll hurt my lungs, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I was telling him kind of over the day that I was a little bit frustrated with where I was and physically, and I wanted to be able to, lift up the bags of potatoes, and I wanted to go hiking again. And he's like, well, hey, I lift in my garage gym back when garage gyms were cool. This is back in way before they were cool. This is back in 2004, 2005, before garage gyms were even a thing. He had one. He had a garage gym at his parents' house, and he's like, hey, my parents have this garage. I got this gym in there. I just work out alone right now, and it's kind of boring, and man, I'd love to have you come down and just do a workout with me sometime. And I was like, yeah, okay, cool. We're busy. We're slamming out hamburgers and sandwiches and salads, and he's, pouring beers and making milkshakes because he was the counter person, and I was one of the cooks. And, over the course of the next hour or two, I'm really thinking about it. I'm looking at him, and he's just got these guns on him, and he's got these traps, and he's looking like he's pretty solid, and he's getting ready to hike this mountain that I've aspired to hike since I was a little kid. And I was like, man, all I'd have to do is just go out there and try it. And then I was like, oh, he's probably way stronger than me, and all the excuses, well, what if, I don't want to embarrass myself, or whatever it is, whatever the excuses are. And it came time for break again. Okay, cool. 2 hours, 2.5 hours, whatever it was. And I'm like, okay, so I go outside, I flip open my pack of cigarettes, and I've got one cigarette left, like I said. And there's a local market down the road, and on my way down to the market, I lit up my cigarette and smoked it, put it out. When I get to the market, go inside, purchase another pack of Camel filters. And as I'm walking back to my workplace, I'm holding this cigarette pack in my hand by the bottom, and it's got cellophane around it. I don't know if you guys have ever smoked or whatever, but you have to open the cellophane, the cellophane around it. And then you have to open the pack, and then there's more tinfoil or whatever, kind of keeping everything fresh. That was the first thing I would do, is pack them down so the tobacco would cram down into the cigarette a little bit more so it wouldn't smoke so fast, so it could last longer. And walking down the road, and I'm really conflicted right now in my mind. I'm just like, I could open this pack of cigarettes and just continue on what I'm doing, or I can go work out tonight, which my buddy offered, and I can start something new, and I can feel better about my decision. And I get almost back to where my workplace is, and I walk up to near this trash can that's on the sidewalk, and I stood there for a second with a cigarette pack in my hand, unwrapped, and I threw the pack of cigarettes into the trash can, unopened, and walked back to the deli, which I was working at. Walked up to my friend and said, I would love to come work out with you tonight. What time are you going to be there? So he told me, he gave me the directions to get there. Actually, I think I just followed him out there at the time because we both got off work at the exact same time. And man, I got in there. Actually, I think I went home, changed some clothes because I was a cook. I mean, we were slinging burgers and chicken sandwiches and all sorts of stuff. And I was just dirty and sweaty and greasy. And so I went home, changed, and man, I went and worked out with him. We did some upper body, some back, some bench press, and some arms. And I just felt all pumped up and full, and I felt so good. And I was like, man, I've got to come do this again. He's like, well, I'm going to do some legs tomorrow. And I was like, okay, cool. So came back tomorrow. At that time, I was so like excited about this new thing that I was going to do. And I was so excited about like the feeling that I got from working out that I never smoked another cigarette again. That was the very last time I'd ever smoked a cigarette. I can't think of the date or the day, what date it was. I had to have been, I was 19 or 20. I know that. I still continued to smoke pot for a little bit longer and drink for a little bit longer. I did end up quitting both of those for several years. And I drink, I'm not going to lie. It's just something that I enjoy doing, but it's not like smoking cigarettes every single day, a pack of cigarettes, and smoking an eighth of weed a day and that type of stuff. And there's healthy boundaries and everything. So but yeah, that was the very last day I smoked cigarettes. I think I smoked weed for another 6 months before I really started diving down and like, oh man, I want to get gains. We started to like measure biceps and chests and arms, and I started working out with another buddy, and he was like had abs, and I was like, oh man, like abs, that would be cool. Like I came from 125 pounds soaking wet, no muscle in sight, skinny fat looking weak dude. And I started working out with these guys that had been working out for like years and years and years, and they were both pretty genetically gifted as well. But both of them and they were really disciplined. They lifted lots of weights, and they were disciplined on their diets, and they did that for years, and they didn't abuse their bodies in ways that I did. And anyway, I aspired to get like that. And so I never looked back. I've been strength training ever since. It's been the absolute best thing that's ever come to my life. Those two decisions was, one, I can make this decision, and then two, sticking with the strength training. And I've seen so many people, they start and they get going and they love the journey. One thing gets a little tiny pebble, trips them up, and they go right back to where they want to go. Your brain's always telling you, go back to the way it was. It's easier that way. This is hard. You have to tell your brain, hey, look, I'm trying to do something else. I'm going to do this anyway. I don't care what you say, and I'm going to continue on. As I reflect on these changes, it's allowed me to open a gym, live a life that I want to, strong, healthy life where I'm able to hike mountains when I want to. I'm able to show my family that I can do hard things. I can show my daughters that they too can be empowered by lifting weights and do anything they want in their lives. I've helped a ton of other people. Our gym has now helped almost 2,000 people reach their goals, get strong, have records, enjoy their lives, do hard things. And like I said, we're not just trying to just help individuals in our gym. Absolutely, that's one of the things we're trying to do. But we're also trying to bring strength and resilience outside of the walls of our gym by bringing these things like volunteering at shelters, volunteering at our church to do barbecues, helping random people lift things that they need to be lifted, like bringing strength and resilience and showing people that they can change their own lives. So they don't have to be reliant on the government. They don't have to be reliant on an addiction. They don't have to be reliant on somebody else. They can help themselves by getting stronger, and they can help others as well, right? Man, that was a lot. I bring all this to you guys because I don't want any pity, any shame, any sorrow, anything like that. The things that's happened in my life, sure can be frustrating, but it's all I know. And it doesn't matter. It only matters that I learned and I grew, and I want to help others get where they want to too. And I think that, I post a lot of stuff on social media. You guys hear my podcast, you see my YouTube stuff, and a lot of it's like, the highlight reel of what's going on in my life and this and that. And I want to be real with you guys and share. We're all humans. We all got things going on, and sometimes people have a little bit more, and sometimes it affects people in more negative ways than others. And I just want to be real with you guys and show you that, hey, I didn't work out my entire life. I didn't come from a fitness family. My dad worked out a little bit when I was younger, but he never showed me any of it. He didn't hey, let's go out in the backyard and lift, or hey, I'm going to the gym, you want to come? He never did anything like that until he was in prison, and actually we were riding back and forth, and I told him, I was like, hey, I started lifting with my buddy, and he was like, well, hey, what are you doing? And so I told him, and he was lifting in prison, and so he was writing me on his workouts, and I was writing him my workouts, and that inspired me as well, knowing that he had a really terrible situation, that he was making the best of it, and he came out really fit. When he exited prison, he was in very good condition, running a lot, lifting a lot, and having a good time. And unfortunately, he's let some of that go, but it is what it is. Life has its seasons, and I think that he'll probably get back into it. But yeah, man, I'm really here to share how this journey has influenced me as a father, a husband, and a community leader. And I hope that somebody can take this. My main goal for this podcast is not to be like, oh, poor Nate, blah, 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 whatever. The main reason for this podcast is to, just be real with you guys and hopefully resonate with somebody out there that can change their lives as well. And they find themselves in a position that they necessarily don't want to be in, that you're only one decision away from changing your whole entire life. And you just got to stick with it. That's the hardest thing. You can make the decision, but you also have to make the decision every day to stick with it. And so you got this, you can do it. If I've done it, I know you can do it as well. But anyway, guys, that's all I got for you today. And I said, I hope that this just resonates with somebody. This journey has been something that I've been very passionate about. I'm planning on writing a book about this at some point in my life. I've got some stuff back and forth, some stuff that I've written up. And hopefully it'll come to fruition one day. I'm working on it one step at a time. It's a very frustrating process for me, especially because I was never good at creative writing. I was never good at writing in general or speaking. But look at me now. I've got a podcast and I'm writing and stuff like that. So I've tried, and you can always work on your weaknesses. And that's something that I've been really empowering myself to do, and others as well. Anyway, guys, I hope that you guys have a great day. Enjoy your fall, but get out there and do something hard today, because you never know what you're made of. All right, guys, until next time, I'll talk to you later. Thanks for joining us on the Go Heavy or Go Home podcast today. We hope you got a lot of value and had a ton of fun. If you guys want to learn a little bit more about what we do, or just have a ton of resources at your fingertips, head over to benstrengthwarehouse.com and hit the Start My Journey button. All right, guys, until next time, go heavy or go home.